Alright, so Dead or Alive is getting a reboot. Let's talk about it. Of course, I had to make a different style video for this one because Dead or Alive is one of my favorite fighting game franchises of all time, and of course fighting games are my favorite genre of video games. So I definitely wanted to talk about this and didn't want to let it slide. I think most of the people that are subscribed to me are from my Dead or Alive videos because I do make a lot of them. And it is a very small niche community, unfortunately. But yeah, Dead or Alive potentially getting a reboot. So here are my thoughts, right? I think this is, for the most part, a good thing. I do think that Dead or Alive would probably most benefit from getting a reboot instead of them making Dead or Alive 7. Personally, I think I would have preferred DOA 7 instead of a reboot, but I think for the series as a whole, it probably would be best to do a reboot. Now, here's why. Nowadays, fighting games do have somewhat of a story element to them. It's not necessarily a deep, interesting story all the time, such as like the Mortal Kombat franchise. I think the Mortal Kombat and Injustice franchise typically do a pretty decent job with their stories, right? Like there's a lot of lore there, they have a cinematic, story mode experience, which is great, right? And it feels like a premium product because even if you're not necessarily good at that fighting game, you still get a entertaining like hour-and-a-half movie experience that you get to fight and enjoy, right? There's also other games that do story mode like Guilty Gear, where it's kind of just like actually just watching an anime where you just watch the story mode itself and you don't really do anything. Me personally, I'm not a fan of that because I do feel like at that point, it's like, why am I playing a game then? Like I feel like there needs to be more interaction when it comes to a story mode in a video game, because if it's just watching it, it really doesn't feel like you should be booting up your console to do that for me. And I just feel like after watching like stuff happen, I'm like, I want to fight, like I don't want to keep sitting here wasting time or like what, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me personally, especially when, because they've done it in other fighting games. It feels like it would be easy for them to just incorporate, interaction and just incorporate having fights at this moment, like, I don't know. Anyway, not a fan of that, but the fact that it's there, I think is still, something, right? I really like the way Street Fighter 5 did their story mode, where they had a cinematic story there, but they also had character story modes, like specifically to kind of show like how this character got to this point, whether that be before the story mode or after it. And then they also had little arcade endings at the end of each character's arcade mode to show where they were at this point in the Street Fighter series. Like I think they handled it pretty well. There's also other story modes like Soul Calibur and everything too. I think I should probably make a separate video talking about each fighting game story mode and how they handled it. But anyway, I say all that to say, Dead or Alive's story modes have never really been truly great or truly a great experience. And I feel like they could easily fix that if they just actually put some time into making the story mode experience like understandable, like easy to follow along. Because I feel like DOA 5 and DOA 6, it's like they know how to make cutscenes, they know how to make interesting interactions with characters, but the problem is they all feel so random. Like when you play through the story mode of either of those games, which those are the two games that I have played and I started with. So when you play through those though, it feels like, okay, something cool is kind of happening, but I don't really know how to follow along with this, and then it's like you jump from words on the screen that are supposed to explain a bunch of stuff to then characters meeting each other, and it looks like it's a cool interaction, but at the same time you don't really know what's going on, and it's, I don't know, it's just so, it feels so random. Like it feels way too random all over the place, and then out of nowhere you cut from this like really high intense moment from like Helena and Hayate to Tina and Mila like cooking at a bar or something. Like it never feels complete, it never feels coherent, it always feels super random. And for me, that's the one thing that DOA has been lacking on for like a while, the past two games for sure. But I think as someone who is new to DOA, this could be a huge opportunity for them to get their shit together and actually make a good story and good story mode for people to really actually get into the series with, right? Because I feel like for the most part, the DOA franchise, most people just see the characters look really hot, really sexy, they see the big booba, and then they're like, oh, this is a game for degenerates, right? But in actuality, the game itself as a fighting game is probably one of the most hard, technical, and skill requiring fighting games out there, to be quite honest. Like the mechanics itself make it so deep and so complex. Like yes, it's easy to pick up and play, but at the same time, like once you learn the basics and the mechanics and you got them down, like you know how to hold moves and stuff like that, it gets so deep because you can hold pretty much anything, which makes pretty much every combo irrelevant if you know what they're gonna do next. And then like it's just crazy. You have to pretty much mix up everything you do, and it gets so deep on a fundamental level that it's insane. It's really actually insane. Probably one of the most skillful fighters out there right now, but people don't really see that because they just see the booba. So I feel like them having a reboot would actually give them that opportunity to not only do the story right, make an interesting story for people to really gravitate towards and be like, oh hey, like this is actually pretty cool, and you know they can now follow the story mode of DOA, but also give them an opportunity to have kind of this refresh of like, hey, fighting game isn't all just anime girls and waifus and boobs and stuff like that. Even though I've never seen it as just that, and I've always seen it for what it is, which is a very high level fighting game at its core, but still easy to pick up and play, it would still be nice if other people did see it as that for what it is. So this could be that opportunity, you know, that nice reboot, that clean slate, as opposed to DOA 7, which would probably not grant that. However, the downside to them doing a reboot is that my main, Mila, who I love, absolutely love to death, may or may not make it to the roster in a Dead or Alive reboot. But I think she would definitely make it if this was a Dead or Alive 7 instead of a reboot. So that's kind of where I am conflicted, because to me, Mila is probably the one character in any fighting game that I have put the absolute most time into. I know like literally all of her moves and like what they do, and you know, I know that saying that is kind of like, oh well, you know, that's not necessarily saying much, because I also know every move for Jury, like in Street Fighter, and I know everything that they do and what they're used for and all that. But I feel like when it comes to Dead or Alive, it's a little bit different because each character has like so many different moves, such a huge arsenal of moves used for different things, and like each one is just so, you know, like there's just so much variety in every moveset of every character of Dead or Alive. And I feel like me saying that about a Dead or Alive character has a lot more merit than me saying that about a different character in a different fighting game. I mean, like Brad Wong has like over 200 moves, something like that. It's crazy. Each character and each move just has so much versatility, right? Like it gets so deep, and there's just so many possibilities that it's crazy. It really is. But yeah, I put a lot of time into this character, partly because I do love, you know, how she plays and how she feels, but also just because in general, in any fighting game that I've ever played, I think Mila, to me, is probably the one fighting game character that feels the best, right? Like I feel like I wake up every day and I want to play Dead or Alive just to press buttons with Mila, because I love the way the character feels. I love her moveset. I love her animations. I love what she does. I love how she just punches. I love how she's got the duffel bag, you know, punch combo, how she's got a command grab. Like I just wake up wanting to play as this character. I really do love how she feels in the hands, and how she just, you know, everything, you know, the animation, the combos, the overhead where she just straight up bops you on the head with just a meaty duff to the face, and like it's just everything about it. I love it. I love this character. She reminds me a lot of Vanessa from King of Fighters, which I also love that character. But yeah, something about Mila I love, you know. And obviously I love a lot of characters in a lot of fighting games, right? Like Jury is another example. I love the way Jury feels, especially in Street Fighter 4. She was like a negative edge character, very unique to play. But for me, I just feel like Mila was always so easy and always so fun to play at any level, right? Like obviously now that I've learned all her moves and everything she has to offer, and I'm still trying to incorporate using all those tools and all their, you know, respective situations to use them, it's even more fun. But even when I first started playing DOA, she was super fun, you know, just to play and just to mash the triangle button and do her punch combo. Like she was always been fun, right? Always she's been fun. And I feel like she's just always felt so good to play as. And I honestly don't think that I could really pick up this Dead or Alive game reboot if Mila's not in it. Like, if I'm being honest, I don't think I can main another character in Dead or Alive. I've spent way too much time playing Mila in DOA to really gravitate towards any other character in the franchise. Maybe that's a bad thing, maybe that's my fault, but it's true. Like, I just feel like the way they designed her is just so fantastic, so amazing, that if she's not in it, I'm just not gonna buy the game. Like, I'm just not gonna play it. I don't want to play DOA without Mila. I really don't. And I know it's not really their fault, but that's just how I feel, honestly. I love this character so much, and I don't think I could really gravitate towards a DOA game without her in it. So, you know, no matter how good it is, right? I'm sure the game is gonna look amazing, because DOA 6 already looks so fantastic, so amazing. It already looks like a next-gen game on old-gen consoles, right? So I'm sure that PS5, you know, Xbox Series X DOA is gonna look fantastic. But I need my girl, I need Mila. Now, I do think that there's a possibility she could be in as DLC, and that's probably like what's gonna happen. But it just sucks to know that, like, you know, a character that's been in the base roster for the past 2 iterations is gonna be DLC, probably along with, you know, most of the other characters that I like using, like Rachel, Momiji, and if they add any guest characters. If they add Tifa though, oh my god. Please, for the love of God, add Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII. I have always thought that that character should be in DOA, and honestly, I thought that with DOA 7 being canceled, that we would never have that possibility, you know, ever able to happen. But with this new announcement of a reboot, having a second chance and new life being breathed into the series, I really hope that that is a possibility that happens. Would love to see Tifa make it into this game. But anyway, I digress. It just sucks nowadays with the way fighting games are made, with such a minimal roster to start off with, and then DLC, season passes over the years, and then you don't really get that complete full experience until like 4 or 5 years after the game's already been released, and you end up spending probably $300 more plus than you would have if the game just came out the way it did. And then by that time, they might release that Ultimate Edition, which has everything for the same price that it was at the base of the game. And it's like, oh my god, you know, why did I even waste, you know, I don't know. I hate the way fighting games are made nowadays. And, you know, that's probably also another topic for another video. But yeah, I fear that that is the fate of Mila. And I guess better to have her in than to not have her at all. But still, that is going to be my downside of the game. Other things that I want, I mean, I would love for them to bring back tag mode. To be honest, I think that was such a huge thing for me in DOA 5. Being able to play 4 players with my friends, my roommates in college, was some of the best fun I've ever had in DOA and in video games in general. So if they brought that back, that would be sick. I miss when fighting games used to do that. Mortal Kombat 9 did that, and that was also super fun. Just being able to go through arcade mode with like someone else on your team, I think is huge, and I think is really great. I think being able to, you know, have a friend come over and be like, oh, let's play a fighting game, but we don't have to actually fight each other. We can actually fight arcade mode or fight two other people online. I think that is huge, and they should definitely incorporate that into newer fighting games. But, you know, I don't think that they really care about that. But I do think that that is huge, and I think that if there was a game to do it and DOA did it, that would be super sick. So that's something I would want. I would also want them to step their game up with the stages, because DOA 6 really dropped the ball with a lot of their stages, and 5 was doing so well and so good with the Attack on Titan stage and everything. Like, oh, there's so many cool stages in 5, you know, so many interactables and the cliffhangers, everything. Like, it was so cool. And then 6, they said nah. I mean, 6 has some interesting stages, I guess, but there's just not enough, and the ones that they have definitely aren't as cool or as interesting as the ones in 5. So hopefully they step that back up with the reboot. But other than that, there's not really much else I think to say. That is pretty much all my expectations and thoughts and hopes for this Dead or Alive reboot that is potentially going to happen. I mean, they said they want to reboot the series, but then I also saw another article or another news where apparently them rebooting it was a rumor, but I don't think that that was actually true. I think DOA is definitely getting a reboot, and that is why I'm making the video. But in case they say, well, actually we thought about doing the reboot, I'm just gonna throw in this possibility that, like, well, you know, maybe they actually won't happen. Like, I'm not making this video to say, oh yeah, the reboot's actually not happening, or like it is happening. I'm just saying that we all saw the news. If you're here watching this, you probably saw that, yeah, the reboot got announced, and I'm just going with that and saying what I want and don't want, you know. But if the reboot gets canceled or whatever, I mean, hey, at least this video will exist as just kind of my wish list of things that I would want in the next title for the franchise. But yeah, what do you guys think about all of this? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already, it helps me out a ton. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in the next video.